Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Leaders Unplugged. I am Tullio Siragusa, your host, and I'm getting unplugged today with Andrey Knourenko, who is the VP of Engineering at Aras Corporation. Welcome to the show, Andrey. It's great to have you.
Thank
Um,
you.
we're talking today about the future of product lifecycle management. Specifically, we're going to discuss the challenges of migrating fully customizable PLM systems to the cloud. We're going to dig into this in just a second, especially for those who may not know. What does PLM mean? But before we do that, let's get to know Andre a little bit. Tell us about how you got here and why this is such an interesting conversation for you to have with us today.
Well, I was born in former Soviet Union, right? Get my master's degrees in applied maths, computer science over there. We worked for multiple companies, Russia and Israel, and last 25 years in the United States. Well, somehow, a lot of my work was related to enterprise software and kind of manufacturing things where it's applied, right? Even my first job after college was some kind of automation of some manufacturing processes back then. And here in US, I worked at the end of 90s. I worked for PTC. It's a large kind of CAD and PLM company. And 2005, I joined Aras. I was a small company with big ideas how to, transform PLM. And when I joined, it was really 20 people, and we are kind of over 800 people right now, kind of one of the leading PLM companies. And what's more important is continue to be very challenging and interesting, kind of. And this is why I stay there for so long.
Great, thank you. Andre, for those who may not know, what does PLM stand for? What does that acronym mean?
Well, PLM it stands for Product Lifecycle Management, as you said. On a fundamental level, this is a process of managing different stages of life of the product, right? From ideation to design, and then to manufacturing, and then to maintenance. From software standpoint, because obviously software is used for every stage of that life cycle, it's a broad range of tools and applications, right, that allows you to manage those things from requirements to I don't know, project to quality management to design, change management, etc., etc. So the interesting thing that although each manufacturer has uh, some subset at least of those applications, right? Everybody does it very differently. The manufacturing process is very unique for every manufacturing company, and there is no out of the box, right? You cannot just have some um, change management application that everybody will be used. The manufacturing companies who want to have tools that allows them to adjust the software for their needs, right, to make it exactly how to reflect their manufacturing process. And this is kind of where the challenge comes from. On top of it, the complexity of products, right, in the last 20, 30 years grew exponentially, right? So I don't know, classical example, you take your car. 30 years ago, it's barely had any software. Right now, it's like tens of microprocessors, and so software drives everything, right? So plus company, of course, wants to change the manufacturing process, and they evolve all the time, and they want their PLM system also evolve with that, right? So and finally, again, the PLM vendors also release new software, right, to fix bugs, do upgrades, etc. So uh, moving existing PLM system that might have go through very extensive implementation cycle to new version of the platform is pretty expensive, right? And it's very costly process. Sometimes cost as much as kind of initial implementation. And so this is what company needs. They need flexible, powerful, and upgradable systems. And this is where Aras comes with such a platform, right? We have such platform that allows to do that. And we, as I said, it was a small company. We're now one of leading PLM companies. We have a large customer base. It's like Honda and Boeing and Microsoft and GE, and list goes on and on and on.
So let's talk about a little bit the current state, uh, moving to the cloud. Clearly, there's some benefits of moving to the cloud: more flexibility, accessibility, scalability, and dare I say also the ability to leverage, for example, advanced analytics and even
Mhm.
AI capabilities.
Yes.
How is it being done today versus how it could be or should be done on the cloud? What are the complexities of making that shift specifically versus how it's done today, like as is versus how it should be? What are you seeing as a challenge around that?
So traditionally, PLM systems were deployed on-prem, right? Legacy PLM systems, it's just the products that customers deploy in the data centers. And as Innovator, that's our product, was worked the same way. And we started looking obviously on a cloud a while ago. What's interesting, there was very little interest in manufacturing companies moving to the cloud.
Mm,
And I believe the major concern, of course, was security, because it's definitely damaging for the company when, let's say, your sales leads get stolen, right? But
mm,
when your uh, uh, design documents of your latest model that you plan to release next year is stolen, right? It's a completely different impact, right, on your business, right? So
mm.
this is why kind of those companies like very reluctant to move to the cloud, because the perception for the years was that when we keep it close to our chest, right, it's more secure and things like this. I think over the last several years, that perception changed, because obviously increased requirements to the security, like the standards. It's very difficult to implement, costly to implement, right, by companies ITs. And cloud vendors also, providers now have much more tools, to support those requirements. So finally, again, the cloud is now so prevalent, right? It's like enterprise companies now kind of use a lot of SaaS applications, right? So why not PLM? So especially that's changed obviously with the COVID, right? So when everybody moved online. So in the last few years, we see increasingly increased demand, and it increases exponentially, right, for migration to the cloud. So we start offering a few years ago our platform as a SaaS solution, and we have already several customers who do this, and much more in the pipeline.
You said something interesting about the fear of risk of tapping into intellectual property or even stealing intellectual property. Has that's been the primary driver for keeping, for example, PLM off the cloud? But that's been resolved for the most
Mhm.
part in recent years, and I couldn't help but realize it's kind of like what's happening with workforce, right? The mindset of everybody needs to be in the office.
Yeah.
It's the same mindset, right? With remote work is basically the same, to a certain degree, the same challenge of having moved from on-prem to cloud applications. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. I was curious about some of the key benefits of making that migration. Would you say customization and integration complexities become less of a complexity? Can you talk to that a little bit?
So yeah, I think there are multiple kind of aspects of that. Obviously, a company looking to reduce the expenses on IT, right, and but keep high level of security compliance and all those things to have kind of reliability of the systems, right, and to be able to do backup and all that's needed. And that's obviously comes kind of easy with the cloud because that's the kind of job of cloud providers, right? The service providers to take care of this.
What about specific like customizations that
Yeah,
might have been built based on a machine type, right? Now you're moving it to the cloud. Do you have to rewrite it? What are some of the complexities
Yeah,
around
this
it?
is a very good question because obviously there were cloud PLM system on the market before, right? But those systems typically has very limited flexibility, right? And typically it's fine for maybe small and medium-sized company, but for large companies with complex products with a lot of suppliers, etc., kind of that definitely kind of doesn't work. So, and this was a challenge because for a highly customizable system right, like ours to move to the cloud, at least it means that customers should be able to continue to do the customizations they were able to do before, right? And if before, and we provided some tools around that, but customizations made on-prem deployment, it's kind of easier to manage, right? Because you can just, I don't know, copy files, right, to somewhere, restart your IIS and do things, right? And et cetera, et cetera. I mean, with the cloud, it becomes all, you need some tools, right? Like DevOps environments that allows you to do this. Keep in mind also that on a large customization project, usually it's a team of solution engineers, right, that kind of work on this. So obviously, we provide some low code kind of tools to customize, to do UI, to do things, but ultimately at the end, it's all translated into some set of data configurations files, metadata, right? And if multiple people on the team working with that, it has to be somehow merged, right? And then deployed. So obviously there is some kind of source control system underneath. So with moving the cloud, again, if you want to keep all this customization and flexibility, right, it should stay. So as a minimum, you have to provide the first challenge, some DevOps environment that allows people to continue build those customizations, to test them, to deploy them, right? Even if it's kind of the instance of your deployment is running somewhere on the cloud and served by service provider. So that's one challenge. And
I
I
mean,
think that's yeah.
just to add to that, I mean, I would think a lot of the concern is, will we lose certain functionalities that are dependent on both the code and the machines that it's written on? Moving to the cloud, does that have any impact to the business operations? So it's not so easy to just move it to the cloud. You need some kind of a platform that allows for that conversion or
Right.
translation. Is that what you guys are proposing that you provide a bridge to do? Can you
So
talk a
we
little bit
we
more
do,
about
as I said, we provide customers with this DevOps environment that allows them to again to continue doing what they did before. Our cloud deployments, our customers' cloud deployments have exactly the same capabilities as on-prem deployments, and this is quite unique, I believe, at this stage, at least in PLM domain, because it's not very easy to do. So you in addition, if you wanted to run the cloud efficiently as a service provider, so you have to provide some cloud management platform, right? Because think about this, every deployment, as I said, is quite different, right? The manufacturing process is different, so each deployment for each customer, although they all built on top of the same platform and might even share some shared services, right? But there is obviously they highly customized it. Essentially, it's quite a different results that like maybe one customer see from another. Nevertheless, as a service provider, I'm interested to somehow to run this, use as much as shared kind of resources as possible, right? To optimize my cloud cost, etc.
that?
So I need very efficient cloud management platform to be able to deploy those deployments, right? Those customizations for particular customers, monitor them, update them, kind of keep them up to date, etc., etc. So that's another piece, kind of that's not very simple to build such a cloud management platform that allows you to do that, right? And
This is great. Let's dig in a little more on some of the concerns perhaps that organization might have in that migration. For example, maybe concerns around latency or the user experience from a performance perspective based on network connectivity or system uptime. These are all things that don't come up as a challenge when it's on-prem, right? So what's the sort of fix for those concerns?
Mhm. Well, it's definitely true. Although we have already at this point multiple cloud deployments for multiple customers, and they work just great. I think obviously if the latency is a factor, right? And typically when application deployed inside your local area networks, I mean, latency is significantly lower. But I think there are a couple points here. First of all, large companies, that's mostly our customers, they have very distributed uh, by nature, right? They have
Right.
offices in different countries, so doesn't matter if it deployed in the data center. It's typically somewhere remote. It's not like the server installed in the next room where the people sitting, right? So that's one point. Another is, I mean, there are definitely tools how to achieve kind of low latency even with the cloud. But third is definitely that's one of the things we with migration to the cloud we have to work a lot. We need to minimize kind of the traffic between the client uh, and the server where the server side application is running, right? So, and this is required some changes maybe in your application, and we kind of did this. And again, we have many at this point cloud-based deployment, and they all works just fine. Yeah.
Do you find the need for planning like things around change management from a user adoption point of view as companies migrate from PLM to the cloud? What have been some of the best practices you've noticed some of these multinationals deploy in terms of addressing concerns related to latency or addressing concerns related to functionalities that might need to be rewritten or might look slightly different as a result of that? How are organization planning for this kind of change, and in order to ensure good adoption as the transition happens? Or some tips on how to plan for it, that'd
Yeah.
be great too.
No, I think definitely yes. Migration to cloud is a big shift, right, for those companies. But I think that's the key. We're trying to make that migration as seamless to our customers as possible, right? We're trying to provide the same level of flexibility in our product as in SaaS offer, or if it's deployed on prem, we provide the tools that allows again them to build those customizations, etc., etc. Obviously, there's some change management inside the companies right now. This is not responsibility of maybe of the company's IT, right, to run this application and keep that up to date, but the service provider. Although obviously it costs somewhat more because we now do the job of your IT, but if you calculate all the expenses on the hardware, right? Keeping this hardware up to date, all this kind of need for all the security systems you need to implement to make that kind of secure, right? IT personnel, etc., etc. Obviously, running in the cloud is much more efficient. This is why we see such a large adoption
Yeah.
of the cloud solutions right now. So.
You mentioned most of your clients are multinationals. I'm curious, what is the market size for this? How many companies are still running uh, PLM environments? It seems cloud has really evolved and matured over the years. Is there still a big percentage of companies that are struggling moving to the cloud or still dealing with having to plan all this, network connectivity and IT staff and all the
Yeah.
management that goes behind it? Obviously, you guys have built a business around it. I'm just curious of how big of a problem is this still? this migration challenge?
Um, well, first of all, you'll be surprised. A lot of companies, of course, it's a lot of them, maybe small, medium-sized companies, still using Excel, for kind of managing some of the uh, uh, processes related to life cycle of their products, right? So I would say Excel is the biggest competitor for the whole PLM vendors, right?
Interesting.
So, but with definitely when companies implementing PLM systems, it was a big hope, right? If you go back many years, in general, with implementation of PLM system, the hope was that so now we have that great system where the single source of truth, all our information will be there, right? All our cycles of that life cycle will be connected, right? We will have all this beautiful digital thread where we can trace how the changes in, for example, requirements kind of affect the design and the manufacturing process and other way around, right? In reality, unfortunately, uh, it's a famous 10-10-100. So as a result of a lot of PLM implementations, it was only 10% of functionality was implemented. 10% of users that they planned initially kind of have access to the system, but 100% of budget was spent, right? And obviously, again, this is kind of that's unfortunately for a lot of companies that use kind of old legacy PLM systems. So I think this one of reasons Aras was so successful. Again, we provide much more flexible, much more kind of agile way to do this. And migration to the cloud is the next stage of this because obviously now those uh, moves to the cloud, right? Making system kind of put it into production will be faster because you eliminate that stage of um, setting up your own system, right? Hire an IT personnel to kind of to maintain it, right? To worry about all the things kind of to run physically in your data center, the systems you need, etc., etc. Um, one important thing I think I mentioned, but that's upgrades, right? It's I
Mm.
mentioned this, but upgrade is a big deal, and this is one of our big competitive advantages. I think right now, when implementation is done, after a few years, customers find that upgrade needs to be done, and then upgrade is kind of very difficult. I think one of the challenges again in the cloud is to make sure that those upgrades can be done much faster and more automated way, right? We already do upgrades uh, significantly faster than our competitors. There are some independent data that upgrades with Aras like up to 20 times cheaper than kind of with some of our competitors. But in the cloud, we see a lot of opportunities to make it even better, right? Because you can share some services between multiple customers where those services definitely that not holds the data or customizations that can breach the boundaries of the deployments, right? And that can be upgraded automatically. And then we introduce more mechanisms in the cloud that allow us to understand kind of the application, right? And maybe, as you said, applying some, that's our kind of plans to AI models, right, to understand this and generate some automated tests that can be applied immediately after upgrade is done, so the customer has significantly less work in certifying the upgrade before it goes into production. So there are a lot of advantages that company have when they move to the cloud.
Excellent. We're up on time, but I was curious as a final question. How is AI coming into play? Does it help in us helping to assess what needs to happen, the risks associated with dependency on local machines, for example, for moving functionalities and capability? Is that something in the roadmap for you guys, or is that part of how you do it? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely new exciting technology. We look at this starting from We now testing AI copilots, right, in a product development, right? So that allows to quickly generate at least some stub of the code, stub of automated tests, right, and then later can be changed by developers. We see significant potentially increase in productivity for development teams on that. But then when it comes to the customizations and deployments of our platform by customers, there are a lot of opportunities there, obviously, from, again, providing some services based on kind of models that allow customers, for example, to make choices in design that more environmentally friendly, for example, right? So then AI system will be able to, again, to based on the data collected and model trained, to suggest, right, kind of like, oh, instead of maybe this part, right, in assembly, we can use this part and requires significantly less.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah, and things like this. So it's a lot of ideas. So definitely, that's a new exciting things, and we're looking at this, and it's coming.
Excellent. Well, Andrey, it's been a pleasure to have you. We're over time. Thanks for being with me this morning. My birds here are chirping in. They're trying to be part of the show. So just
Thanks for
stay with
having me.
me as we go off the air in just a second. I want to announce what we've got coming up next week. We've got on Monday Ebenezer Schubert, who's the VP of Engineering of OutSystems. And on Tuesday, we're talking with Reza Razul, who's the CTO of Real Network. So we'll announce the topics as we get closer. So keep an eye out on your whatever social media platform you're following us. We broadcast live on all of them. So plenty of opportunities to catch us. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for watching this week, everyone. We'll see you again next week. Have a great weekend and take care.
Thank you.